Today I'll show you how I made this frame for nylon hammocks, headrest hammocks. It's totally reconfigurable. It folds down, and all for around $55. Interested? Here we go! The way I designed this is twist this off and you can go to a different hole. It's currently at 10 feet for this nylon hammock. Headrest hammocks, they need about 15 feet, so you can easily lower this down by going to, say, this hole right here, and then you're perfect. Or you can have this side down and this side up, or vice versa, depending on what your situation is and how you like your hammock. Totally reconfigurable, easy to work with, made out of materials that you can pretty much get anywhere. You can make a hammock frame like this for around $55, no kidding, or less, depending on what materials you already have on hand. Now comes the legal part. I cannot guarantee how anyone will make their own version of this. I hope that you take this design and kind of incorporate the things that you like and maybe modify it for your purposes, but I can't guarantee the construction or the materials you're going to use. So be safe out there. This is just to give you an example, and your builds are your responsibility. This is a lot of fun. It's relatively easy to do. I've kind of made some design elements incorporating almost like a Frank Lloyd Wright, Taliesin-ish kind of design with, you know, some Southwest influences, what have you, and it's totally functional. You could actually cut this in half here with like an I-beam construction. I might do a follow-up video on that, so you could actually get this to be all within 4 feet footprint, kind of all stuck. Actually, it'd be 5 feet because that's what this is here. But it's easy to take apart. You'll see that later in the video. So let's get building this thing. There's a bunch of hammock frame videos out there. I know that. But what I'll tell you the difference in this one is, I'm going to tell you exact dimensions on all the parts. I'm going to show you all the critical construction, and I'm going to give you design options and trade-offs based on the hammock that you're trying to use. Let's go over all the components. This build can be made with 3 10-foot long 2x4s and 1 8-foot long 2x4. If you want to have a little extra margin, you could get 4 10-foot long 2x4s and make this project. I'll also list all the components in the comment section below the video, so you can check that out there. I'm also going to put all the hardware components in there. I'll walk through the various hardware pieces, hardware being the steel bolts and the nuts and things like that that need to go through to join this all together. So let's start with the bottom base. The bottom base is 2 8-foot long 2x4s. This is an 8-inch long piece, and there's 2 of those. The bottom frame cross piece is right here. There's 2 of those. They're 4 foot long, and then there's these 2 square 2x4 blocks, and I'll show you in the video how to make those. So that's the bottom cross piece. This is the angle support piece to the uprights. The uprights are 1 10-foot long 2x4 cut in half, so these are 5 foot long on either side. These cross pieces are 3 foot long. This here is 8 inches long, and there's another corresponding piece up there, 8 inches long. I might change that to 12. We'll see how that works out, and that's going to be where you put your eyelets for suspending the hammock. These pieces have already been put in place, and they were screwed in with 4-inch long screws, deck screws that were coated to make sure that, in this case, that the pressure treated wasn't going to interact with the metal screws. Here's a hint when making these short square 4x4 pieces. First thing I do is take a 2x4 and I just mark graciously because I want to make sure that it's legitimately that, and then I just take a carpenter square. These carpenter squares are great for this kind of thing. Get on the line, and like I said, I want to cut right on the line or left to the line and make sure that I have a square. Now, trying to drill a hole into something that big is going to be challenging, so I'm actually going to do the hole prep now. And I come up here and I line up the two corners and draw the center. And measure twice, cut once kind of thing. So just take your time and get this hole right, because it's going to be 3/8 inch. So that's the center. And then what I do is I start out with a smaller drill to kind of blaze the trail with the hole, and then I go in with 3/8 inch drill. So I start with a 1/4 inch drill bit, and then I graduate up to the 3/8 inch drill bit. And I'm going to do the hole before I do the cut. That's the hole with the smaller drill bit. And here's that piece cut off of the end there, nice and square and ready for the project. This is the lower pivot point right here. You can see I used similar X as I did for these. I used a 4-inch screw exterior with the coating on it, and I screwed here and here. I pre-drilled using a drill bit about the size of the shaft, but enough to get the grooves to grip onto. So if you use a drill bit that's about the size of this thickness here, then you're good to go, and that helps go through. So I pre-drilled this, ran it on this side and this side, and then on the other side it's here and here, so it's a nice tight fit. The next thing I'm going to do is put on the legs, or the supports, going this way, and I'm going to tie that in to this here, right about there. Hi there, future Mike here. Earlier Mike didn't know that he was going to replace this piece right here. I said it was an 8-inch long 2x4. Turns out that I'd rather use an 8-inch long 2x8 to give a little stronger structure. Totally up to you. The 2x4 would probably work, but I really wanted to make this design as solid as possible. So I'm using the square as a template, clamped it down, and I'm just pushing the position. I want to make sure that this is nice and flush, because it's going to mate up with this bottom. I'll show you that later. And the whole idea of this drill bit going through here like this is to put a bolt in place so that these legs can be taken off. If you don't want to do that, you can just really simplify the build by taking the 4-foot long cross piece and just drilling it into here, like I'm going to drill these two pieces here later on. Once I've marked the hole with the drill, using this as the template, then I just complete drilling all the way through into the 2x4 on the other side, which you can kind of see here. I used the same technique on the other side, and now I'm just completing drill through straight. I'm using an 8-inch bolt. That's the biggest one I could find. If you could use an 8.5-inch bolt, you could probably put a nut on this end. But since the threads aren't going out that far, I'm actually going to put a T-nut on this end. So this is going to be nice and solid. Pre-drilled all the holes with a 9/64-inch drill bit. Again, because it matches up well with the shaft of the screw. I've got the screws already. I've pre-drilled the holes into here, and now it's just a matter of screwing these in place over here to make the cross piece. That's what it looks like all screwed in, and you can see it's got a nice little pivot. So if you have like a little bit of a slope, that's fine. If you didn't want to have the ability to take this cross piece off, you could permanently just screw it into these boards here. Again, that's totally a trade-off for you. I want to make it so I can disassemble it, put it in the garage, and it doesn't take up much space. Now just repeat everything I just did here on the other side. Since I put that cross piece on there, I had to move to the workbench. The workbench actually gets it off the ground. It's a lot easier. A couple other hints here. There's the screws, here's the holes, and I put D down for the down or the ones that you're going to screw into. And you might be tempted to screw in the wood on the side because it's smoother, and you want to screw into the cut side because then you're going between the grains as opposed to against the grain here. So it's going to be a better connection, and you won't likely split the wood, especially if you've pre-drilled it. Again, you can totally forego the ability to take this off and simplify. You won't have to drill the bolt through. You could actually screw into the wood here. So I've got the upright there, and I've determined that the distance between this hole and this hole is, I'm going to do it in both centimeters, and it's approximately 24 centimeters or 9.5 inches from the center of this hole to this hole. This is the 3-foot long cross piece that goes on the bottom. Couple things here. First of all, I've made this design. If you're going to do like a hatter's hammock, you probably need to come all the way out to the 3 feet, because that will give you around 15 feet worth of distance. But I'm only going to need it this far. Now, I've done one side, and that's the most complicated thing, is getting all these dimensions right. You can see this red line here and some red lines here. These are guides, and this tells me that it's on the left side is the red. I'm going to use a blue marker for the right side so that I can tell these two pieces apart. So if I disassemble it for some reason, I'll know which side is which, and we'll be able to keep it together. You want to make sure you line these things up the way you drilled them originally. So that's the center hole here, and I've just got a 6-inch, 3/8 inch bolt. All my hardware for this build is 3/8 inch. The other thing these red lines are, you can see this one's at an angle, this is at an angle, this is straight. This is to help guide me putting in the assemblies. On the side over here, on the red or left side, you've got the same marks on the 2 uprights. And then this is at the base also. So I know what angle to put, so I can just put these bolts back in together. You can put the bolt in here on this end, and the bolt on this end, and you've got a straight point, and then you just use your 3/8 inch drill and drill straight down into this right here, and that will give you an exact fit. We're looking at 20 inches on center here from the bottom hole that goes into the base, and this that goes into the upright. And for you metric folks out there, 20 inches is about 51 centimeters. This hole is drilled, so now the blue piece will be the same as the red piece. Another hint, since I've already done the red side, what I did is I migrated the lines to the blue side, so that would help speed up the process of putting that in place. I've also marked X's to identify the bottom piece. In this case, red X and the blue X. I guess I could put B for bottom, and then we'll do the same thing. So I'll probably do that on this side too. This is the base hole cross piece. This line here is 1 foot from here to here. You can see that I went around and I centered the holes so I could drill the same hole on both sides. So I'll take one of these uprights off for the other side when I make the other upright and drill those holes. And just as I did with the cross piece, this is the upright on the other side, and I'm going to use the one I've already cut as a template and then just drill through this hole, and it's all lined up. You want to make sure that when you lined these two up originally for the 5-foot piece and drilled this original hole, you want to make sure that they're lined up as flush as possible all the way down. Otherwise you're going to get a little goofiness at the top, and when you try to put in the end piece where you're going to suspend the hammock, it's not going to work out best as it could for you. A little bit of marking and remembering really helps the build come along successfully. I'm using a 300-pound strength eye bolt. That's a 1/2 inch, and you can see I've screwed it in on 2 sides here. I might add a couple screws there. You could also glue it. Got some screws here because the screws on this side are coming through the wood to about here. So I'll see if that's enough screws. The original piece here is 8 inches. I think I'm going to go with a 12-inch. I'm going to bring this in a little deeper. Halfway point is right there, and look at that. So that's where I'm going to drill my hole. I'm going to center punch it, starting with a really small drill bit, and build up to that 1/2 inch so I don't crack the wood around here. Here's the eye bolt I'm using. It's a 1/2 inch, 6-inch long, and you can see it's good for 300 pounds. Here is the eye bolt in the 2x4. You can see that I've got the loop coming around here for extra strength. Put a washer here if you wanted, but I think it's going to be fine. I just want to make sure I get 1 or 2 threads showing on that bolt, and then I'm good to go. So I've made sure this is all nice and flush on the front and the back, and then I've pre-drilled some holes again to avoid from the wood splitting. And now I'm just going to put some 4-inch the next day, and I'm not real happy with this joint. It moves around in place too much because the 2x4 isn't holding it in place. So I'm upgrading to a 2x8, and we're going to put that sucker in there. We're going to have to cut it down this way a little bit. And because the design of this is to fold down and take apart, this comes off, this is bolted onto this piece. I've got some screws I have to take out, but that's not a big deal. And then this comes off. So I can easily reconfigure this for the bigger piece without starting from scratch. I've got this in the ideal configuration, and I wanted to capture this angle instead of doing all the geometry. So I've put a sheet of paper in there. It happens to be perpendicular. And then I just used my fingernail and came down here and traced a line, and that will get me really close to this angle so that when I cut it out, this is a 2x4, so I know that distance, add this on there and that will cut out, and I'll be able to get pretty close to the size I need when I go to cut this cross cut down here to put the 2x8 in place. And here's just to show you that these cross pieces do come off with this design, that easy. And I put a B&B here so I could make sure that I line up the right side with the right side. I'm using this old piece as the template to drill the hole. It's a lot easier than trying to drill the hole again. And then I'm going to come down on the angle with that paper that I had before. I know all these holes are here. I'm probably just going to tap those in, and because this is a little drier piece of pressure treated, I'm going to actually pre-drill those holes on this piece so that they don't split. And taking the time to line this up and clamp it down right is really important because it saves you a lot of time and frustration. To transcribe the angle I got off of the rig over there, I've lined this up and I've put it up here as close as I can to get the approximation, and then as that comes down off the side, I just take a center punch and marked it, so that gives me the point to draw the line. Pre-drilled all the holes here. You can see that there's more holes because they're actually going through the wood, and I've actually marked it like I did last time so I can easily line it up. I'm going to make the second piece for the other end. So all I've done is I've taken this piece that I've already cut, I've marked the angle, I've marked the side and the hole, and drill that before I cut it off because it's just easier to manage the piece. Here it is all back together again, much stronger. This guy is not rocking at all. Here it is on the other side. Register lines really helped me put it back together. This here is an eyelet. It's a 6-inch, goes all the way through, and it's got a T-nut. This is the point you take apart when you want to flatten it down. And it's easy to do that. You can use a screwdriver or a piece of dowel, turn it around, and yet it locks right in place, nice and snug. If I was to buy them over again, I'd probably go with the 8-inch and have a little bit of extension, kind of like I have here, but then you just cut it off if that's annoying you. But this one works solid. The threads are right up there against the edge of the T. Now just repeat everything I did on this side over here, and then you're done. For my next version of this hammock frame, I'm going to turn it into a skateboard. Look for that soon, or if it's already available, you'll see it somewhere up here. Thumbs up and comments always appreciated. Thanks for watching. And if you're interested in these kind of things, please subscribe. I make and break all sorts of things. I have outdoor projects, indoor projects, home repairs, cosplay. You just never know what you're going to see on my channel. I post at least once a week, and if I have extra time, twice or more.